Hi, I'm Patricia, and today I'm going to be presenting on interpersonal communication. Throughout this course, we've learned a lot about the importance of interpersonal communication versus impersonal communication. So let's begin with there. At this moment, please go on to the first slide. The introduction, impersonal versus interpersonal. Impersonal communication happens between roles. That's where you come in as the customer and talk to the Starbucks sales clerk as the Starbucks sales clerk. Her name doesn't matter, her past doesn't matter. But in interpersonal communication, that happens between persons. That you are no longer just the customer. You are now the specific person who has background, who has history, who has pros and cons that factor into the way that you communicate. And the Starbucks sales clerk is no longer just the Starbucks sales clerk. Her history and background and culture and influences all matter as well. And Stewart, he defines the quality of contact that can be achieved as the contact quotient. That quotient, I believe, is very important to interpersonal communication because that establishes the value to a person. Um, and he defines that quotient by saying that the richness or quality of contact achieved divided by the richness or quality of the contact possible, and that gives you the contact quotient. And that number can be high. For instance, if it's someone like your mother, that you have a pretty high denominator with her. It can go up to like 10,000 if that's what you want to assess it by. But someone as small as, say, the Starbucks sales clerk, hers would be pretty small. It would be 100. Yet you can still strive to get as much contact possible by asking her what's her name, by asking her how her day's been, and genuinely caring about how it's been. Stewart also says that there is a direct linkage between the quality of communication and the quality of life. So, to truly understand interpersonal communication, we must understand that the way that we communicate with people, the way that we allow ourselves to be open, to have our opinions heard, and also to hear the opinions of others, that establishes what type of life we will lead. And so I believe that that's very, very important. Um, if you would go on to the next slide, the benefits of listening. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. The next slide is why should we listen? Um, 40% of the time spent in the communication process is dedicated to listening, whereas only 35% of the time goes to talking, and the remaining 25% goes to either writing or reading. And that is found in Burley Allen on page 22. Basically, what that statement surmises is that listening is the key component in true communication. As a communicator, you should not strive to have your point be the point that's being heard. I believe Peterson defined that as talking to win. And rather, when you communicate or talk to someone, you should talk to understand. And that's also the benefits of listening, or one of the um, the key components of listening. Stewart inserts that communicating is nothing more than making meaning together, so that meaning must so to make meaning, we must learn to listen and to effectively listen and empathetically. Go on to the next slide, please. Okay, the benefits of listening. When we truly listen to someone and listen with an empathetic ear, we gain a deeper and more rewarding relationship with them. It also brings awareness to about ourselves. We learn how we communicate. We learn the areas where we're closed off, things that are we're sensitive to, and things that we are open to. So it really truly listening to someone else's points of view, it somehow shines a light back on us as individuals. And it also helps in the professional development and success. Managers who listen more to their subordinates are more likely to have the cooperations of their subordinates because the people who work under them feel that they are important and that their opinion matters just as much as the manager does. And that does a lot for self confidence and the work production within a business. So, if you go on to the next slide, in the communication process, we must define an overarching goal. For me specifically, within this class structure, I have created the overarching goal to offer every individual the respect of level 3 listening as defined by Burley Allen. An effective listening, or level 3 listening rather, is nothing more than empathetic listening. Is listening to put yourself in the other person's shoes. You try to understand what they're trying to say, and it's without judgment. It extends empathy. You're not distracted by anything that's going on around you. You offer encouragement. It's a safe environment, and you listen from the heart. You are truly open to hearing whatever they have to say, without putting yourself in the mix of things. It's clearly about like what they are feeling, and you are just trying to connect with them so then they know that you care about what's going on. Well, enlarging the conversation. There are lots of things that must be done to enlarge the conversation, such as self disclosure, uh, the need to win. But when you're doing the need to win, hi, okay. But while you're doing the need to win, the point of it is you don't need to win. You communicate so that the person, you are seeking to gain understanding within the conversation versus having your point heard and your point heard and understood. And that can become, and Peterson also says that a way that we enlarge the conversation is by the double reverse twist, which we will get into a little bit later on in the presentation. You also must have genuine care and concern about the conversation to help enlarge it. You seek understanding within the conversation and not just to have your voice heard. And it's also you share ideas, thoughts, feelings, and concern. That's you opening up, furthering it with self disclosure. Go on to the next slide. My background. I come from a very big family. There are five of us, five children, and my mother and my father. And as an article stated, the birth order is considered one of the most influential environmental factors in child development and effective cognitive abilities and behavioral traits. My family, I would say, hands down, has been the biggest influence on my the way that I communicate. Since we're so large, we have the big family syndrome, I like to call it, where whenever we get the floor, we talk as much as we possibly can because we know that once we give it to someone else, then it's gone. There's no telling when we're going to get it back, and when we do get it back, we're going to have to fight for it. It's not an easy task, being the one to speak. And often you also have to argue your point. What you say, if you don't want to feel like you're unimportant, you have to make points and you have to make it stand and you have to be definitive. And that's often how I communicate with people. I'm very one-sided. What I say is what goes because there is no other way. And it's funny because as a person, that's not really how I am. I understand that I'm like a warm and inviting person, as we will see on the next slide with my behavioral blend. But as a communicator, I am very stern and to the point because I don't want my point to be kind of whitewashed by someone else's point that's coming up behind me. And Burley Allen also discusses how the child's upbringing is so important in their growing communication styles. She states a child's behavior is often formed by the way he or she is paid attention to or receives recognition from others. Um, she gives a list of a little handout within her book, or a questionnaire rather, that basically just sums up how, if a child is told no, stop, this, that, or other, as they grow up, that's the same way that they communicate with others. And so, just from my family's background, I just know that I'm very stern, and also at times I also it's hard for me to speak up because I'm so used to, when I do speak up at times, my point being grounded and criticized and analyzed to the point where it's just like, why bother? Whatever I have to say, it's in my mind, and that's it. If you don't agree with it, you don't have to hear it. But in life, you can't be like that. There are times that you have to learn to speak up for yourself. So, if you go on to the next slide, it's called the personality blend. Here you can see my personality blend as defined by Corbinell's personality personality test. I am an S-type personality type, and listed are all the different characteristics of my personality blend. And I would have to say that that is me kind of summed up in a bullet point paragraph. I am very energetic. I'm very expressive, but then I'm also quiet and shy, and I am ongoing and reserved. But like, I'm very influential and impulsive, and but then I'm kind of soft and sensitive, and I can thrive in a crowd, or I can or I can blend in with a small group. It all depends on what I feel my role is within the context of the situation. So it has its negatives and its positives. Like, negatively, I can be a attention hog. Like, as I said before, when I grab the floor and start to talk, I don't want to give it up to anyone else, because what I have to say is so important, so much more important than what you have to say. And then I can also be overly emotional, and but then my points can waver because I'm desiring to please whoever's listening to me. Yet I'm still bullheaded because I know my point is the most important point. But it has positives because I'm also hardworking, because I seek to please people. I'm people focused, so I have a genuine caring heart about what others have to say, and I provide very good listening environments because people feel safe and secure as they are talking to me. And going on to the next slide, what barriers do those create? Well, of course, since I'm so emotional, it creates flat brain syndrome, which is defined as loosely by Peterson. Basically, when we get so overwhelmed with emotions that we can no longer effectively or efficiently listen to someone else because too much is going on internally within us. And so, with my personality type, that happens often because I get so excited, or I get so consumed by the emotion that maybe that the crowd is feeling me, or the other person, that I'm not even listening to them anymore. I just have to get the emotions that I feel out. Another problem is also deception. Since I seek to be a people pleaser, sometimes I kind of manipulate what I have to say in order to make that person happy. It may not be necessarily the things that I am trying to communicate. And as far as like different noise pollutions that can be created, like internally and externally, that kind of hinder me as as an effective listener and as a communicator, is a negative self-talk. I'm always criticizing myself, wondering, does this person like me? Are they liking what I'm saying? Attention, ADHD, extremely ADHD, very easily distracted, very easily taken out of my focus point by some type of stimulus that just kind of happens to pass by, and I totally forget everything that I've heard to before. Biased listening. I already know the end before the conversation even begins. So why are we even having this conversation? So I listen with my own ending. And then the different styles of listening, like the interrupter, the self-conscious listener, the list goes on. All of those are internal things that are going on within me that are affecting me from efficiently listening to the other person. And then external things are loud noises. My ADHD kicks in and I completely forget to listen to the person who's talking. Other conversations, if someone's over there having a conversation, I kind of want to know what they're going on because I may like that one better. The television and time. If I feel like I'm in a rush for time and I cannot focus in on you because the only thing I'm constantly thinking about is time. And that's an external factor. If we go into the next slide, we can start to see my solutions for overcoming the barriers, which can be a daunting task, but overcoming the benefits are well worth it. The flat brain syndrome, I really one good way of overcoming that is by realizing that the communicator's problem is not my problem, and then by that, like that is where the double reverse twist comes in. When I get that thud and they try to start giving me their emotions, I stop and I gulp it back and I give it back to them. And then in that, Peterson does offer a lot of different ways for us to kind of work through that thud. Like I can start asking questions. I can paraphrase what they say. I can repeat what they say verbatim. Doing anything I have to do in order to give them back the conversation, because in the communication process I have to own my feelings and know what's me and what's them, and in establishing those two orders you can learn them as a person and also learn yourself as a person. And then second, with the deception, a quote was said by us, Stewart, on deception, and it says the potential ramifications of deception in the long run is more trouble than the truth. And just in remembering that, and also in thinking about how we as Christians are supposed to be truthful, and we are carriers of the truth. So falling back on my roots of Christianity and just knowing that even if I think deceiving the person to make them feel better is the best thing at that moment, knowing that it's not, and just going forth and trusting God and Holy Spirit to just kind of lead me through telling the truth in matters, no matter what the outcome may be. And then ways to overcome the noise pollutions, the internally, like if there's a lot of noise going on, basically ask for silence. Let them know, tell them straight up, hey, there's too much going on and I can't focus on you. Can we go somewhere else that's maybe a little bit quieter so I can really truly listen to you, because that's my heart's desire. To turn off the television. So then it's just me and another person communicating, and practice focus techniques, practice listening, even if it's like to a lecture, just sitting there in a chair and practice listening as much as I possibly can so that I can basically understand what is being said to me, and then ask for clarification and ask questions. As in order to stay engaged in the conversation. And internal ways to overcome the noise pollution is focusing on the brain, the flat brain tango, and recognizing the blood and giving it back, and do not own the problem. And also, other things would be listening without agreeing, disagreeing, advising, or defending. That as well helps separate me from that other person. Repeat accurately and paraphrase and ask questions and own my own feelings. All of these will help first teach me to empathize with the person, going back to my overarching goal, becoming that level 3 listener, putting myself in the other person's shoes and doing for them what I would like for someone else to do for me. And it also for me, teaches me that it is their problem. I don't have a problem. I was okay before they came, and so therefore I should be okay after they leave. And if you go on to the next slide, that's my bibliography of all of the references I use throughout this presentation. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you understand communication better. I hope you understand me as a communicator, my personality, the barriers that I have as a communicator, and the solutions that I have for ending or overcoming that. Thanks so much, and I will see you later.